There is a strange moment that happens when you finally get tired of your own life. Not tired because you're weak, not tired because you've failed, but tired because you've been carrying things that were never meant to be carried this far, and one morning you wake up, look around, and realize something uncomfortable. Your life isn't always suffering because something is missing. Sometimes it's suffering because something needs to be removed. A man can have a good job, a decent home, people around him, and still feel completely exhausted. Why? Because every day he's carrying invisible weight, someone else's opinion, an old mistake, a relationship that has already expired, a habit he knows is destroying his potential, a fear of disappointing people, and the strangest part, nobody sees it. That's why today's message isn't about adding 10 more habits to your morning routine. It's about subtraction, because sometimes the next level of your life isn't hiding behind something you need to find. It's hiding behind something you need to let go of. And the first thing we're going to eliminate is something so subtle, you may not even realize you're doing it. 1. Eliminate the need to explain yourself. Imagine you're sitting across from someone you've known for years. You make a decision they don't agree with. Maybe you leave a job. Maybe you stop answering every call. Maybe you decide to spend less time partying and more time building your future. And suddenly, you feel like you owe everyone an explanation. You start defending yourself. You explain your reasons. You explain your intentions. You explain what happened. And when they still don't understand, you explain it again. But here's what maturity teaches you. You don't need everyone to understand your decisions. Marcus Aurelius understood something powerful about human nature. Other people's judgments are outside your control. You can spend your entire life trying to manage how people perceive you and still fail. Because people see your life through their own experiences, insecurities, expectations, and beliefs. So let them think, let them misunderstand, let them talk. Your responsibility is not to control their interpretation of you. Your responsibility is to control your character. Sometimes the most powerful sentence you can say is, "I've made my decision," and then stop talking. No speech, no argument, no performance, just peace. 2. Eliminate comparison. A few years ago, a man could live a perfectly good life without knowing what everyone else was doing. Today, you can wake up, and before you've even gotten out of bed, you can see hundreds of people appearing richer, healthier, happier, and more successful than you. Someone bought a new house. Someone launched a company. Someone got married. Someone is traveling through Europe. Someone your age just became a millionaire. And suddenly, your own progress feels insignificant. But there's a problem. You're comparing your entire life to moments someone decided to show you. That's not reality. That's a highlight reel. The Stoics had a better approach. Instead of asking, "Am I ahead of them?" ask, "Am I becoming better than I was?" That's a completely different game. Because if your definition of success depends on being ahead of somebody else, there will always be another person to beat, and you'll never arrive. Eliminate comparison, not loudly, not dramatically. Just stop participating in the competition. Build your life, improve your health, strengthen your mind, develop your skills, become someone you're proud to be, and let everyone else run their own race. 3. Eliminate people who constantly drain your energy. Now, this one requires maturity, because not every person who drains you is a terrible person. Sometimes you're simply no longer compatible. Think about a conversation that leaves you exhausted every single time. You already know the pattern, the complaints, the negativity, the unnecessary drama, the constant criticism. You walk away from the conversation feeling heavier than when it started, and yet you keep returning. Why? Because history makes us loyal to things that no longer serve us. But you have to understand something. History is not the same thing as obligation. You can appreciate what someone meant to you without giving them unlimited access to your future. And you don't always need a dramatic ending. You can simply create distance, talk less, participate less, react less, protect your peace. The strongest boundary is sometimes not a confrontation, it's a quiet change in access. 4. Eliminate overthinking. Now imagine this. It's 2:17 in the morning. You're lying in bed. The room is silent, but your mind isn't. You're replaying something someone said 6 months ago. You're imagining a conversation that hasn't happened. You're predicting a problem that may never come. You're asking yourself, what if I fail? What if they leave? What if I make the wrong choice? And suddenly, 3 hours disappear. This is one of the cruelest tricks of the mind. It makes you feel like you're solving a problem when you're actually rehearsing anxiety about a possibility. There is a Stoic question that can interrupt this cycle. Is this within my control? If yes, do something. If no, release it. That's it. Not easy, but simple. You don't need to solve tomorrow tonight. You don't need to rewrite yesterday. You need to deal with what is actually in front of you. Because your mind becomes exhausted when it constantly lives in places your body cannot reach. Come back to today. Today is where your power is. But here's where this gets interesting. Because you can remove toxic people. You can stop comparing yourself. You can quiet your mind and still feel stuck. Why? Because there are things inside you that you've been carrying for years. And the next few are harder because you can't simply walk away from them. You have to confront them. 5. Eliminate the addiction to instant gratification. Look at modern life. Everything is designed to give you something immediately. One click, one swipe, one notification, one video, one purchase, one distraction. The problem isn't that these things exist. The problem begins when your brain becomes uncomfortable with waiting. You sit down to work, and 5 minutes later, you reach for your phone. You start reading, and suddenly you're checking something else. You decide to improve your life, but the moment progress becomes boring, you quit. And slowly you train your mind to demand a reward before it earns one. That's dangerous for your potential. Because the greatest things in life usually have a delayed reward: strength, wisdom, financial stability, deep relationships, mastery, character. None of them are built overnight. So practice waiting. Finish the difficult task. Take the walk when you don't feel like it. Keep working when nobody is applauding. You are not just building a result. You're building the ability to delay comfort. And that ability changes everything. 6. Eliminate the old identity. There's something most people never realize. Sometimes your biggest obstacle isn't your circumstances. It's the story you've accepted about yourself. I'm just not disciplined. I'm bad with money. I'm always unlucky. I've never been confident. That's just who I am. Be careful with that last sentence. Because when you repeat an identity long enough, you start defending it. Maybe 5 years ago you were insecure. Maybe you made terrible decisions. Maybe you wasted opportunities. Maybe you allowed people to treat you poorly. Fine, that happened. But it doesn't have to become your permanent identity. You are allowed to change. You're allowed to become quieter, stronger, more disciplined, more patient, more selective. Your past can explain you, but it does not have to control you. The person you were doesn't need to be destroyed. They simply need to stop driving. 7. Eliminate negative self-talk. There is one conversation you have every single day that nobody else can hear. The conversation you have with yourself. And sometimes you're your own harshest critic. You make one mistake and say, I'm useless. You fail once and say, I'll never succeed. Someone rejects you and suddenly you decide, nobody will ever want me. Notice what happened. One event became an identity. One failure became a prediction. One bad day became a story about your entire future. That's not strength. That's mental exaggeration. Stoicism doesn't teach you to pretend everything is wonderful. It teaches you to see things clearly. So instead of, I'm a failure, say, I failed at this. There's a huge difference. One attacks your identity. The other describes an event. Speak to yourself with honesty, but also with discipline. You don't need to flatter yourself. You need to stop sabotaging yourself. 8. Eliminate chasing people who don't choose you. This may be the hardest one for some people, because when you care about someone, you want them to care back. So you keep reaching out, you keep checking, you keep trying, you keep giving more. And eventually you're no longer building a relationship. You're trying to convince someone of your value. Stop. You cannot negotiate genuine connection. You cannot force respect. You cannot make someone appreciate what they have. If someone repeatedly chooses distance, accept the information. Don't turn rejection into a mission. Don't spend months trying to prove that you're worthy. Walk away with dignity, not because you hate them, not because you're angry, but because you understand a fundamental Stoic principle. You cannot control another person's choice. You can only control your response to it. And sometimes your most powerful response is acceptance. 9. Eliminate the fear of being alone. There is a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness says, nobody is here for me. Solitude says, I finally have space to hear myself. Some of the most important seasons of your life may be quiet ones. There may come a period when your phone isn't constantly ringing, your circle becomes smaller, your weekends become quieter. And at first it may feel strange, but don't automatically assume something is wrong. Maybe life is giving you room to think, room to rebuild, room to discover what you actually believe, room to become comfortable with your own company. Because if you cannot stand being alone, you may become dependent on people who are wrong for you simply because they're available. Learn to enjoy your own presence. When you can sit alone without needing constant stimulation, you become much harder to manipulate. You stop accepting anything just to avoid emptiness, and that's freedom. 10. Eliminate the need to control what you cannot control. And now we reach the one lesson underneath all the others. You cannot control everything. You never could. You cannot control what someone thinks about you. You cannot control whether someone stays. You cannot control the past. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control every outcome. You cannot control whether your plan works exactly as expected. But you can control something. Your response, your discipline, your choices, your attitude, your effort, your character. Imagine you're standing on a beach during a storm. You cannot command the ocean. You cannot tell the wind where to blow. You cannot stop the clouds, but you can decide whether you panic or stand firmly. That's Stoicism. Not becoming emotionless, not pretending life doesn't hurt. It's understanding where your power actually exists. And once you stop wasting energy fighting reality, you have more energy to build your life. So tonight, ask yourself 10 questions. What am I still trying to explain? Who am I comparing myself to? Who constantly drains my energy? What am I overthinking? Where am I addicted to instant gratification? What old identity am I still carrying? How do I speak to myself when nobody is listening? Who am I chasing that isn't choosing me? Why am I afraid of being alone? And finally, what am I trying to control that was never mine to control? You don't have to change your entire life tomorrow. Start smaller. Remove one thing, one distraction, one unhealthy pattern, one unnecessary argument, one habit, one attachment, and don't announce it. Don't post about it. Don't tell everyone. Just do it. Because real transformation doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like going home early, putting your phone down, saying no, walking away, staying quiet, keeping your promise to yourself, going to bed on time, doing the work, and waking up the next morning, slightly stronger than yesterday. That's how a life changes, not in one giant moment, but through hundreds of quiet decisions nobody else sees. And one day you'll look back and realize something. You didn't become stronger because life became easier. You became stronger because you stopped carrying everything life placed in front of you. You learned what was yours and what wasn't, what deserved your attention and what didn't, who deserved access and who didn't, what deserved a response and what deserved silence. And perhaps that's the deepest lesson of Stoicism. Peace isn't found when life finally gives you everything you want. Peace begins when you stop allowing everything to control you. So, eliminate quietly, walk away quietly, improve quietly, build quietly, and let the results speak so loudly that you never have to explain who you've become.